Good morning from the campus of USC. Connor Morrissette and Chris Trevino were back for instant analysis because the first day of USC's fall camp was this morning, and we were there to cover all of the action. Chris, it's so good to be with you. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I made this note in my ghost notes. It feels like just yesterday you and I were on the field at Allegiant Stadium talking about USC's dramatic win over Texas A&M in Las Vegas Bowl and talking about Jada Maeva and this offseason and what's going to be the future for USC in 2025, year 2 of the Big Ten. Now we're here. Almost time for that first game and kickoff, so very excited, and obviously very excited for the first day of fall camp.
The future is now. We have so much to get to. Practice observations on some of the new players, what was said after practice by Lincoln Riley and new strength coach Tremaine Carroll. But let's just start with who was limited today. Lincoln Riley went out of his way to tell us that, which was helpful. So Caden Chittenden, the kicker's limited somehow. That was interesting. Carlin Jones, D. Reddick, Jacoby Lane, Gus Cordova, Riley Wormley. Cordova and Wormley didn't really do a whole lot, and Wormley, especially, that's expected. He's dealing with a knee injury. Jacoby Lane, the big name there, but out of all those guys, outside of Wormley, Riley said that they don't expect anyone to be a long-term absence, so that's good.
Yeah, obviously, as you said, Jacoby Lane, the big one, like the glaring one. Obviously, Mekhi Lemon was banged up in spring camp, wasn't full go with that hamstring. Looks like he's back full go. Now Jacoby Lane has to take it back a little bit, so they're kind of trading off. But Jacoby Lane, I'm sure we'll talk about it in the observations, but a lot of coaching today from Jacoby Lane.
A lot of coaching is right. Keyshawn Silver was out there. He was the guy who was limited during the spring. He had a big brace on his knee today, a big brace on his elbow, but he came out and looked good. DJ Wingfield came out in street clothes because he can't participate in fall camp while his litigation with the NCAA is ongoing. If you haven't been following that, he had to sue the NCAA to get another year of eligibility, and that's all being worked out behind the scenes. As of right now, though, he's ineligible to participate in fall camp. Hopefully we'll get an answer on that soon. I think it's going to be 50-50 whether he can play or not. Outside of that, everyone was present and accounted for, Chris, so no one is rehabbing that we couldn't see. Everyone was on the field, which was great to see. And then Lincoln Riley highlighted a couple of standouts from today. New safety Kennedy Urlacher, new cornerback Chasen Johnson, and then your guy Eric Gentry, who every time he's on the field, he's making a lot of plays. Sounded like a good day for the defense, first day at USC.
Specifically the secondary, because he noted the secondary as well. So sounds like the secondary players were making some plays here early day one. He did note, they're kind of limited. It's not full pads. They're just in the spiders and the helmets. We'll know more obviously when the shells come on and the full pads eventually. But yeah, didn't want to give away too much. But it was nice that he named a few of those players there, as you mentioned.
We're going to get into our practice observations. Reminder, we're allowed to watch about 20 minutes of warm-ups and then some individual drills before the stuff really gets going and we get asked to leave. But before that, Adrian Clem, the veteran offensive line coach, he has been hired at USC as a defensive analyst. Lincoln Riley said after practice that they were looking for someone to join the defensive staff who has an offensive background. Clem is familiar with some of the USC staff members. He's coached at Oregon, UCLA, and the pros with the Patriots and the Steelers, so it's a name that made a lot of sense. When we saw him walk out, it didn't quite click. I thought for a second maybe it's this guy, a new member of the strength staff, but then, it's so early in the morning, you just think, actually, I think it might have been Adrian Clem, and then he was working with a linebacker, so we got that all squared away. It's interesting, though. He has an offensive background. He's working with the defense, as I said, but a guy with a lot of experience and just another really big brain in this room of coaches for USC. It just seems like the support staff, the coaching staff, it's really never been better under Lincoln Riley.
Yeah, a really good resume, someone who, as you mentioned, has coached at the highest level in the NFL. Said he was available and they wanted to bring him in, and did mention, he will be working with the defensive staff, but will be doing a lot of different roles for USC. Obviously, Clem comes with a really good background recruiting. He's known as being a recruiter, signed some big prospects, or Josh Connerly at Oregon helped them land there against USC at the last second. So I know maybe Lincoln Riley, if you can't beat him, have him on your staff. But obviously USC's been doing a lot better in recruiting lately, including offensive line recruiting. They have a 5-star in the fold in Kenai Pepe, but it is an interesting hire and just another instance of USC, Lincoln Riley, and this front office flexing their muscles and getting in another kind of marquee coaching name into the program.
Clem, the reputation certainly speaks for itself from a coaching perspective. He did leave the Patriots and the Steelers a little unceremoniously, which is something that I wanted to note. But clearly he has a relationship with guys in the staff. USC wanted to bring him in, and they're really excited about what he is going to bring to this defense. And now, Chris, we can get into what we saw. I think my first observation today at practice, just the depth of the defense really stands out to me, where you're watching the cornerbacks and it's DeCarlos Nicholson and it's DJ Harvey who are taking those first 2 reps, but then behind them it's just a lot of talent. Chasen Johnson from UCF, Braylon Conley, a guy who's had a good spring, Marcellus Williams, RJ Sermons, Treston Castro. All of a sudden that cornerback room is really good, and you look across the roster, the defensive line room is similar. The linebacker depth looks a lot better now, especially with Elijah Newby going over back to linebacker, but that stood out to me. The infusion of freshmen there, it's like, okay, that room was a lot bigger than the spring. At safety, Kennedy Urlacher gives that room a boost. There's a lot of competitive depth in that room, and I do think the USC defense has a chance to be special this year. I'm going to come out and say that.
Yeah, I mean, to echo what Danton Lynn said at the media day the other day, we're more talented than last year, but we're also less experienced, and I think that's a fair assessment. But I'm going to take that talent over what USC had last season, obviously. And then, yeah, as you mentioned, the depth just stood out today on the first day of fall camp. Obviously, everyone's pretty much healthy. Yep. And the one that caught my eye the most was the linebacker room. I mean, in the spring, that was such a depleted unit with essentially 5 guys in there. One guy who was, getting off injury, and Jaden Walker, who didn't play at all last year, coming off his initial injury when he enrolled. But looking at it now, it's like they were running 3 deep in terms of the drills they were running. You could get scholarship guy. You bring in the 2 freshmen. You got Tamir Robinson from Penn State. You got Elijah Newby back in the fold. They are a deep group, not super experienced. Eric Gentry's still the clear most experienced guy in that room, but talent-wise, off the charts with that room. We'll see what happens, shakes out in terms of the hierarchy. Elijah Newby pushing. Jaden Walker had a really good spring camp. We'll see if he can continue that momentum, but a lot more competition in fall camp with this linebacker room, and that's always something that coaches love to hear, more competition in any room.
And Rob Ryan, if you haven't watched our Sights and Sounds videos, he's letting the expletives fly. The top comment on that YouTube video right now is that, man, I wish I could go back and put the pads on. Watching him coach, it does really get you inspired and make you want to get back out there. That was certainly just worth us going out there and watching today. He's so animated. And I have a couple other notes on the coaching staff, but how Rob Ryan goes about his business and just how he yells at, not the players, but he's like yelling at the tackle dummies and yelling at the pads. It's so funny to see. It's so great to see. And he's a character, that's for sure.
It felt like a situation where once you heard him get going, everyone kind of migrated to the corner to see him coach. And, yeah, F-bomb after F-bomb. And it was so great. This is football. This is, college football. It's football in general. So you need a little of those F-bombs flying everywhere. And Mason Cobb, former USC linebacker, was there. I did note, when Rob Ryan is letting all this stuff fly, he's sitting there watching and listening, has a little grin on his face like, oh, wow, this guy's the real deal.
A.J. Howard is an assistant linebacker coach at USC, and Chris, we were here Monday for USC Media Day. He's not one of the full-time assistants, so he's not able to speak at those events, but he still came in and wanted to see how it goes. And Rob Ryan's been very complimentary of Howard. He came from Appalachian State in the offseason. He pulled aside Matai Tagoai after a rep today and had some words for him. Everything about A.J. Howard screams future coach. I think he's a guy who's going to have a lot of success in college football, maybe potentially as an NFL coach. I've really been impressed with him without even speaking to him. Hopefully we'll have a chance to speak with him at some point. But when you watch practice, you can kind of get a feel for, okay, I think this guy has a really bright future, and that certainly is the case for Howard.
Yeah, a lot of coaching power in that linebacker room today, at least. You had Clem working with the linebackers, Howard, as you said, and then obviously the man himself, Rob Ryan,
and his son's there too.
So they got a lot of hands on deck in that linebacker room, and they're going to need it because they got a lot more bodies now.
Yeah, you can have unlimited assistant coaches now, so USC's taking full advantage of that, which is great. As a blue blood power program, you got some financial muscle, might as well flex it. All right, what else did I have here? Okay, so some rep hierarchy stuff. I mentioned the corners earlier, but the guys who took the first 2 reps, DeCarlos Nicholson and DJ Harvey, a lot can, of course, change. I think Chasen Johnson's going to push for a starting spot as well, but I really like the depth there. I'm pretty confident that Harvey's going to be a starter, and I thought DeCarlos Nicholson finished last season pretty strong, so he'll be pushed, of course, but it was interesting to see those top guys in the cornerback room. The second group was Chasen Johnson and Braylon Conley, and then Marcellus Williams and R.J. Sermon. So we'll see how that competition shakes out. And then at the safety spot, the first group of safeties today, Kamari Ramsey, Bishop Fitzgerald, and Prophet Brown. Kamari Ramsey could play some nickel in some packages. I think he was over 100 snaps at nickel last season. But when he is back there as one of the deeper safeties, I think we're going to see a good amount of Prophet Brown this year.
Yeah, it is certainly moving in that direction. He's a guy who's been here 5 years. His last season, he's been kind of that ultimate rotation guy or key backup. When someone goes down, he'll fill in immediately, but hasn't really earned the title of a starting role for this defense or any defense at USC. So it'll be a great story just to follow with him and all he's gone through at USC and just fighting to get that starting nickel job, which is a key position in this defense. And we've seen him play both outside and nickel, so he has a lot of versatility. And I recommend you go check out the interview we had with him from USC Media Day. A lot really insightful and just reminiscing on his time at USC and what it would mean to be a starter. So I think a lot of people are rooting for Prophet Brown, and as of right now, it looks like he is a heavy favorite to lock up that nickel job out of camp and then moving into the season.
I was going to say, easy guy to root for. The second group of safeties, it was Christian Pierce in the Kamari Ramsey role, Kennedy Urlacher in the Bishop Fitzgerald role, and then Kevin Longstreet, Hassan Longstreet's brother, who came over from Texas A&M. He was working as the backup nickel. The linebacker hierarchy rep at the very end, we saw Desmond Stevens and Eric Gentry take a rep together, and then you mentioned how Elijah Newby was potentially pushing Jaden Walker. We'll see how that all shakes out, but it was Newby and Tamir Robinson who took the second reps, and Walker is a guy who Riley said is absolutely going to have a role this year. So just because he was taking the third rep, that doesn't necessarily mean anything, but it was interesting to see Elijah Newby with Tamir Robinson at that point. So yeah, kind of like what you said earlier, Chris, just the depth there really stands out.
Yeah, and as you said, with Jane Walker, should have a role. Those are special teams guys. I mean, there are going to be some big special teams role and some shoes to fill from last season. Elijah Newby played special teams last year before getting halted with his red shirt, but Jaden Walker, Elijah Newby, probably Tamir Robinson as well, Garrison Madden. I expect a bunch of different linebackers to be contributors on special teams. That's where you got to cut your teeth on this team, especially when you have so much depth now at linebacker. And it's going to be interesting to see who gets in first in those first couple games. Georgia State, Missouri State. We'll see who's going to make plays in the time that they get on the field. And USC fan, you're hoping those are blowouts so you can get some of these young defensive guys in.
We'll definitely be watching that. Let's go to the offense quickly. And just a note on the line of scrimmage, we can't really see a ton from the offensive line. The defensive line, it's a lot of hitting sleds, not really a lot of rep hierarchy stuff. So maybe we'll have a better report on them moving forward. We can watch pretty closely those wide receivers, the tight ends, the running backs. I thought DJ Jordan looked pretty good today at the end of practice when USC started going 7-on-7 and we had to leave. We saw one play. DJ Jordan made a nice catch. That was really the first time I saw him do anything significant with the first team. He's a second-year guy. That's great to see. He maybe is past Jay Fair on the depth chart. I don't know if that's totally fair to say right now, but he was out there with the ones and Fair was not. In terms of some of the young guys, I thought Romero Eisen looked probably the smoothest. Him and Corey Sims out of those first-year wideouts. I really liked what I saw from him. He's just a smooth operator out there. Lake McCree made a nice catch. Anything standing out to you about the pass catchers?
I was actually going to say McCree looked pretty good.
Looks spry.
Yeah, it looks spry. He said, that extra rest at the end of spring camp, not finishing out, taking time back, let him reset his body, and he says he feels great going into fall camp. Looked the part coming out of here on day one, made some really strong catches. Probably the most athletic I've seen him move around. So yeah, that's a good sign for Lake McCree. I thought the running backs all looked really confident catching the ball. Waymon Jordan did have one of the only drops that we did see, but for the most part, Brian Jackson, Eli Sanders, and Waymon Jordan looked really strong catching the ball. Harry Dalton, we got to see our first look at the freshman. Big guy. A lot of athletic ability, played running quarterback in high school. I don't know how much he was asked to catch. It needs to look a little more natural, but again, he's a freshman. Again, he was playing running quarterback for his team in Virginia, one of the most prolific players in the Virginia State history. So again, gonna learn, develop a little bit, but he didn't look out of place catching the football, but just needs to work on a little bit.
Yeah, there was one play, and Jacoby Lane coached him. We were talking about Lane's role today as not a full participant, where the guys just run a straight fly route, they just go deep, and Dalton just stopped running and the ball went way over his head, or a go route, excuse me, not a fly route, and Lane just said, don't stop running, you got to keep going. I will say though, with Dalton, we see all the guys come out of the tunnel. He looked like Wayman Jordan to me. He looks big. He looked the part. He looks like that college running back, and I know the USC staff is really high on him. It'll take him a little bit to get up to speed with catching the ball, of course, and just being new to college football, the pass protection, all that good stuff that running backs have to do. That will be something that will take him a little bit to learn. But in terms of guys who looked the part, he definitely stood out to me out of those first-year guys who came out of the tunnel. How about you, Chris? We talked a little bit about Alani Noah. He looks slim, but I don't want people to freak out. I thought he looked really in shape and athletic and agile, and just because he slimmed down for an offensive lineman, some people will hear that and say, I don't know if that's a good thing. To me, it looked like a good thing. He looked really healthy and ready to go.
Yeah, he definitely looked like he had lost weight in the middle of his stomach. When those big linemen come in freshman year, they have big guts, they have big bellies, and then you see it kind of even out a little bit. You kind of lose it, but he looked like he lost a lot around the waist there, and then went to his arms. He looked really cut, really built, really stout and sturdy. I didn't realize I was looking at an offensive lineman. He looked like one of those cut offensive linemen. And again, he is a little bit svelte now, streamlined a little bit. I don't want to say he's lost size in that sense, but he does look stronger. And if you lose some of the weight around the middle, you're probably a little bit quicker. I think that was one of the issues last year for him playing guard. So it looks like if he's increased his strength, slimmed down just a little bit to increase his speed, I think that's setting him up to have a good start to the season and kind of build off the end of the year he did in 2024, kind of up and down, kind of smoothed out a little bit at the end there. Needs to show more improvement, but new body for him. He did not speak at Media Day, he was supposed to speak at Media Day, so that kind of threw us for a loop. But seeing him there today, he was one of those guys that caught my eye in terms of physical appearance.
Me too. Some of the true freshmen clearly need to add some weight, as expected. That's not a huge surprise. Anyone else coming out of the tunnel catch your eye where you either surprised one way or the other?
Not necessarily. I was looking at Anthony Lucas. He came out jogging. That's a great sign, for him to come out. Tanuk Hines, the big freshman wide receiver that I've bought a bunch of stock in. 6'1", elite track speed. He's compared to a bigger, faster Mekhi Lemon. Sign me up, Connor. I mean, maybe a guy who can help, obviously in the special teams department, but maybe down the line could be a guy who breaks the rotation at some point with that elite track speed and 6'1", built, muscular already. So I'm looking at Tanuk Hines there, and he was one guy I really wanted to get an eye on, and Harry Dalton as well, because he's one of those we joke an enigma. Haven't really seen him before. Seeing him in person, he really did impress. You're right. Kind of looks like Wayman Jordan a little bit. He is built physically, and that's why he's a specimen. Big lower body. That's why he's a powerful runner. If you've seen some of his tape, he just runs through guys, and I can see it. I can see why he does that. He's got all the power in his legs, and that's what you want in a running back. So maybe he can help out in special teams as well, because he's excellent with the ball in his hand. So those were kind of the guys I was looking at.
He looks like a guy who's going to fit right in, and so does Floyd Boucard, the true freshman defensive lineman. He was here in the spring. He's fitting in really well, and that's a very deep room. I don't know how much he'll be able to play on defense this year, but if he did get in and he did see some snaps, that would not totally surprise me. After practice, Chris, we heard from Lincoln Riley and then new strength coach Tremaine Carroll. Riley talked about the standouts, the injured players, the first day of camp, all the run-of-the-mill first day stuff. It was great meeting Tremaine Carroll for the first time. He spoke not really of a straight-up plan for the USC athletes. I'm sure he wants to keep that closer to the vest, but he had a lot of really good quotes. I think my favorite one was, you can't get rid of your problems. You can only upgrade your problems. I like that. In life, you're never going to get rid of stuff that's wrong. Stuff will always come up, but if you keep having success, your problems are going to be better. And you think of the football field, it's like, okay, you have a year where you don't do as well in the win-loss record, and then the next year maybe you do better, but you lose a conference championship game. You've upgraded your problem in a big way. That made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I think that was a really insightful way to look at building a program. And as a strength coach, you have different guys coming in every year, and your goals change essentially with every group. Different needs, different wants, different things you need to achieve. So I think that's a really smart way to look at it, is not eliminating problems, but what are the next problems as we move forward as a program and we get stronger, we get bigger, we get more discipline, all those things. So yeah, I thought that was a really insightful way, and I hadn't really heard it described before that. So I thought that was really insightful, and sounds like he's a guy who's not just building football players, but young men. And I think that's a lot of things. He kind of spoke to that a little bit. Parents are trusting their kids with us. So we have to have a level of trust, and it's all about respect, because I really like the point where he made with like the first day for him and his new staff. There's 3 new guys, leading these guys. They wanted to know everyone's name before that first workout. So they really put in the time to try to get everyone's name down going to that first workout. So they're not just going, hey, you, hey, guy. It's like, hey, Cameron, hey, Harry, hey, Eric, whatever. They know the name and just have that little extra, trust early on. So I thought that was really insightful.
Every day before they work out, Coach Carroll and those assistants put up a quote in the workout room, and they talk about it. That was an example that Carroll gave of trying to do more than football. Let's have an intellectual discussion before we lift. He also said, I'm not here to change, I'm here to enhance. He had a really good analogy with glasses, where just because I give you a pair of glasses, that doesn't mean you'll be able to see. A lot more goes into fixing the problem than just throwing something in your face. I liked what he had to say about some of the assistants. And then, Chris, maybe my favorite thing, I guess I got a lot of favorites from what he talked about. He talked about how USC, the players had to earn the right to climb the stairs in the Coliseum when he first got here. They didn't magically just run those stairs. They ran stairs outside the Coliseum, and when Carroll felt like they were ready, because the Coliseum is such a sacred place here at USC, the players had to earn the right to run the stairs.
Yeah, he said when he first walked in the Coliseum, he was in awe.
Which is understandable. Yeah. The first time you go in the press box, you see the mountains and the Hollywood sign, the city. I totally get it.
Yeah, it's different. Obviously, very historic from a not just football, but like sports aspect. Yep. With everything that's gone on there. So yeah, a hallowed place, and that was. I know USC fans are going to love to hear those kind of comments from him, seeing how the Coliseum and the reverence that it has, and saying, we got to do this right. You guys got to earn the right to have steps, and obviously step running, old school approach to football and doing that. So yeah, I really like that, and I know USC fans are going to like that. And you can see that interview. It's up on YouTube. If you're watching this, it's been on YouTube for like hours. So yeah, go check that out. I think you'll be really impressed. And yeah.
The last thing, I asked him about his assistants. He brought over Lonnie Maddox from Kansas State, and then Kari Thompson, I think from Alabama State, HBCU, I believe. And both of those guys have been strength directors in the past, which you like. It's like Doug Bell calling a defense, and now he's an assistant coach. It's like Matt Entz last year being a head coach, now being the linebacker coach. You want guys with experience running a program as your assistants a lot of the time. That can be very beneficial. And I don't think USC has had a whole lot of that when Benny Wiley was here. You'd have to correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but some of those assistants under Wiley, again, it's just a different way to go about things. It's not the end of the world, but the fact that those guys have run their own programs, Maddox and Thompson, that stood out to me. And Carroll made a point to bring that up. Like, these guys know what they're doing. They've run their own programs before.
Yeah, and that's so helpful to him. This, like, they know what he's looking for. They know what he wants. He wants to run this way. They're going to enforce that way as former directors. Not saying they can as if they weren't former directors, but just having that extra. Yeah, it makes a difference. Has that little extra level of experience and, veteran. I'm blanking on the word, but just that presence as a guy who's run their own strength program and what have you. So just having that extra level of command in your first lieutenants is always good.
Totally agree. One more.
I just wanted to add one more
that'll
thing.
Wrap it up. Not quite.
I wanted to add a comment on the analogy with the glasses.
Yes.
So I thought that was an interesting point as someone who wears a lot of glasses, obviously. Because the question was about, his time at Kansas State and doing what he did at USC. And he said, what I did at USC, I'm not just going to copy and paste to what I do at USC. Different places have different needs. Can't go to an eye doctor and he just gives you his glasses like, all right, you can see. That might make it worse. So I thought that was really, again, insightful. I use that word, but he said, my job right now is to sit back, listen, observe, find out what this place needs, what USC needs, because it's different from what the Kansas State needed. So again, I'm sure he's bringing over a lot of stuff that he did, a lot of philosophy stuff, culture stuff, but in terms of the athletes he has here, the environment here in USC, California, he's right now taking information. He's still getting used to California and USC and all that goes on here. So I really thought it's not a one-to-one copy. It needs its own sort of molded plan and approach, and I thought that was, again, insightful. I'm sorry, that's my buzzword today, but yeah, I thought that was really interesting to hear from him.
Totally agree with you. That will wrap up instant analysis from day one here at USC for their first day of fall camp. Man, great to be back out here. We'll be back Friday. I think we're going to be able to watch a full practice. Won't be able to talk a lot about that full practice, but we can talk about stretch, individual, what was said after. So Stay with us. Friday we'll be back, and we'll have another full update then. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you Friday.